Hi guys, hope you're doing well. Fantastically well at that. If I'm looking a little tired, a little flustered, it's because I am. Today was washing day. I had no idea that washing linen would be this tiring. My lounge is literally full with all of the linen that's hanging over chairs and sofas, and yeah, when my helper comes back and when I'm able to, I'm gonna give her a big hug because this is really exhausting. But looking at my lounge, it reminds me of when we were little. My sister and I used to make these little teepees and watch TV. So you take two chairs, shove a blanket in between, take all your toys and put it inside. Take your snacks and food and watch TV through the little cracks thing there. Pass out and parents have to carry us up to bed. Yeah, so that's what my lounge looks like. Good time. It's coming the end of April and ease of lockdown in a few days. Well, maybe. That's if things in KZN, in terms of the number of affected people, come down. Things are a bit concerning here. But the next day or two, we'll know. But come Friday, it's a new month. And with a new month comes financial obligations that we've already committed to. And in particular, rentals. And for businesses, it's the business rental that's due. But having regard to the fact that, well, we haven't been in business for the whole of April. And many businesses will still not be operational come May. What happens then? Because you are in default, and by virtue of being in default, legal proceedings can be instituted. So I've been inundated with queries and legitimate concerns about what's going to happen, both from the tenant and the landlord's perspective. And there's two approaches, and I'm advising everybody to try and take the latter approach. So the first is, from a legal perspective, a landlord has given a tenant the right for beneficial occupation, in terms of which, in return for the occupation, there is a rental that's due. By virtue of that lockdown, occupation was not possible, so the defense would be raised that the rental would not be due by virtue of the impossibility of not having occupation, and force majeure. That could be raised, and successful too, in my view. But one has to have regard to the relationship, and the relationship is what needs to be maintained, in my view. Every endeavor must be made to ensure that the relationship preserves, because that beneficial relationship is what businesses would need going forward. Think about this. The moment lockdown ends, whenever that may be, a business is not going to have, or it's unreasonable to expect that any business would just automatically start from day one after the lockdown, having optimal operations and thus maximum income. It is most probable that there would be a gradual progression and increase in income as time progresses after the lockdown ends. Therefore, it is reasonable to expect that with businesses, there will be a gradual increase in income from the lockdown. And with the gradual increase of income, there will be a gradual amount of income that can be then dissipated towards all expenses, including rental. So it's likely that businesses, even after the lockdown has ended, would still be in default going forward. So you want to have a relationship where a landlord, even post the lockdown, doesn't start legal proceedings against a party simply because they're in default. So optimally, you'd want to have a situation where the parties can sit together, discuss, come up with a plan or a new revised relationship regarding what's going to happen with the rental, about how much can be paid, if there's an increase, or how you're going to compensate them. you want some sort of new agreement. So basically that would require the parties to cooperate, to productively come to a solution that is most beneficial to both of them. Now I must accept that this is rather optimistic, but this is what is required of both the landlord and the tenant. It is also realistic to expect, and I have already received calls from people saying that, well, the other party doesn't want to talk. Their position is their position according to them, and they don't want to negotiate in that, albeit that and this is realistically going to be expected, hopefully not as a prevailing majority of circumstances, but as a minority. And if this is so, and litigation is inevitable, my advice is the moment you know that litigation has to be incurred or is going to be resulting, seek advice. Look for the advice of a competent attorney who would be able to give you specific remedies regarding your specific situation. Understand that disputes in court pertaining to commercial properties are very, very different from that pertaining to residential. In residential, there's a lot more leniency, there's a lot more the courts are more inclined to grant indulgences to defaulting occupants, residential occupants, than they would in commercial. Besides the constitutional protection that residential tenants have. And also understand that when a dispute goes to court, the majority of disputes are finalized on paper, so the parties are never there, don't actually enter into the witness box, which means it's vital that your case as presented on paper is as flawless as could be. And look, as a litigation attorney, I'm advising people that litigation should be avoided. I mean, it may sound a little strange, a little weird, but I've seen firsthand through other matters as to what happens to litigants involved in litigation. Besides the financial cost, it is emotionally taxing. So you want to try and avoid that. But if it's inevitable, it is inevitable. You have to then take that position and make sure that you have you're able to put forth your best case. But otherwise, try and negotiate as best as you can. Come to a resolution that is sustainable. So you don't want to have an agreement for the sake of having an agreement, only to have that agreement breached very soon. That wouldn't do that. That's not going to help your case in any event. So you want to make sure that when you're coming to some agreement, that agreement has been well thought of and thought through, so as to make that agreement sustainable and something that can be complied with going forward. I hope you have found some value in this, and if you have any queries, feel free to give me a shout. Also, just let me know what kind of topics you'd like me to discuss and to delve into. You can just leave a comment on this below, and if you are wanting to be abreast of all the updates that we put up, just follow us and subscribe or whatever the thing is down there. But wishing you everything of the best, and we'll chat again soon. Take care.